Welcome to your insider's peek at Aweber. Aweber is the last email service that I will be previewing for you, and it's been around for probably the longest of the three. So far, we've talked about ActiveCampaign, MailerLite, and Aweber. And the truth is, I like Aweber. I used Aweber for years. But as my business grew, I wanted a little bit more automation, and ActiveCampaign just kind of works better for the way my brain thinks. And I'll explain that to you a little bit more as we go through. But a lot of people like Aweber, and it's very popular. And it's not very difficult to use. It's just not quite as visual as ActiveCampaign for me. Now, I have already gone through the Aweber setup screens where they ask about your business and they have you put in your address and your email and those types of things. One of the things to note with Aweber is if you sign up for a free trial, they will ask for credit card information and they will charge your credit card after the initial trial period is over. So you want to kind of make sure that you're keeping an eye on that if you don't intend to use them long term and you get in there and you cancel your credit card information. The other thing is they'll send a lot of emails that make you think that they're going to charge you, but they don't. So you don't have to worry about that. If you are concerned, go in and delete your credit card information out of your Aweber account. So just that's a little anomaly with the Aweber free trial. You'll see that I have set up a few things in here for the sake of speed and so I could explain things. The number one difference between Aweber and some of the other email services is that in Aweber, you choose the list you're working on up here. You'll see I have two lists set up, launch stuff and list number 2. And these areas look exactly the same. The subscribers will change depending on which list you've chosen. But otherwise, it can be very confusing if you're not used to how this works. So if I'm in list 2, any of the options I use here apply to the people on list 2 or to list 2 itself. So if I set up a form here, it's setting up a form for list 2. If I go back to launch stuff, you'll see the screen looks exactly the same. Any of the actions I take here are going to affect the list launch stuff. That's different than the way other email service providers work. Usually you start setting something up, whether it's an email or a form, and it will ask you which list you want that form or email or whatever associated with. Okay, so it's a little bit different way of thinking. So this is your dashboard, and it does talk you through or walk you through some of the ways to get started here. I'm going to start with an email, and you'll notice a lot of times in Aweber there are two places to do the same thing. So there's this giant create a message button, and then there's this drop down. So here, if you click on create a message, you can do drag and drop, plain text, or HTML. Here, if you click on a message, it will ask you if you want to do a draft, a broadcast, split test, those types of things, or if you want to go to the template manager. Both will do the same thing, they just do things in a little bit different order. So let's say we're going to do a broadcast email. That means it's going to go out to everybody on the launch stuff list at the same time. Now we're getting to the same area that we would have been if we had just started with the green button. We can choose whether we want to use the drag and drop email builder, do a plain text message with no links, or if you want to do a plain message but put some HTML code in there. Okay, so we're going to go with the drag and drop. And it looks a lot like some of the other email services that we've looked at. You can drag different components over, and now I can edit. And I could change the size. I can change the color. I could italicize it. So you do all of that here. Over in this column, you can change the alignment for it. You can change the padding. And again, the padding is the space above and below. And this is for this entire row. See, in here in Aweber, you'll see this whole section is defined as a row. So if we want to add an image, we could drag that and we could put it between the headline. We could put it after the text box. This is one text box here. If I want to put an image in the middle of here, I would have to do another text box. So let's say I want an image in the middle of my text. I would drag the image over, put the image in, and then I would have to put the rest of the text below it in another text box. Okay, so you could put more text in here. I'm not going to format that now, but you could get rid of this headline. You could reformat this. And then when you look at it, you've got an image in the middle of your text. Okay. Once you have this looking the way you want, you can save the template. You can also go in here and start with one of the Aweber templates. I just jumped right in and this was the template that it defaulted to. But if you look down here, there's some pretty fancy ones and they have multiple colors. So let's say you want to go with something that looks kind of like this. It's more colorful. They even have multiple colors back here that you can choose from. And you'll see in the background how that would change your email. So the really neat thing about this is if you create the email and then you want to change the template, you can see how it's going to take the email that you already used and put it in that template. See, it's still got my image in the middle here. Still got that headline that I created. And in this particular template, you can add things at the top. Okay. Once you've got it the way you like it, if you're going to be using it, say, every week for your newsletter, you can save the whole template yourself. And that way, each week, you can just use that same template. You don't have to use one of theirs. And you don't have to just keep copying your emails from week to week. You can actually create a template that you can reuse. Up at the top here, you'll see I have an error message because I did not add a subject line. And I could personalize it with my name. I could say test email Tracy. I'm going to take that off though because I'm not using first names in this test, so it wouldn't work. Then you can go ahead and you can preview it and test it. You can send a test message to your email address. You can see what it's going to look like on mobile. And when you're all done, you can, if you want to force save it, you can. If you are worried about it not saving, you can save it there, or you can save and exit and you're going to leave this area. And it will take you back out to your drafts area. And in the draft area, it's kind of cool in Aweber, you get a full preview of what the email looks like. So if you've got a bunch of drafts over here, you can remember which one is which. Then you have your send options. You can schedule the broadcast, or you could add it to a follow-up, which is also called an autoresponder series, but we're going to just schedule it. And it asks about sharing. Do we want to keep it in our archive broadcast email area? And that's enabled. Do you want to put it on Facebook or Twitter? Your current list that's going to get it is launch stuff. You're going to send it immediately. And if you want to tag different things, you can set all that up here. And you can either click send message now, or if you want to schedule it, you'd go up here to edit and you would have your settings to schedule it for, say, the 31st and the time zone and things like that. And you'd hit apply. And then it would say, instead of immediately here, it now gives you the options for sending. Okay. And then you're clicking on this green button to schedule it. And you will see it in your messages tab. You will see that it is a scheduled email. So you have sent, scheduled, and anything you're running a split test on. Okay. And you can set the split test up right here. Whoops. So if you have two emails that you want to test the subject lines on, or maybe you use different colors, or maybe one uses an image or one doesn't, you would set the split test up here. Hit the create button. Okay, so we're going to keep moving along here. Subscribers. To add subscribers to your list, you would go to manage, well, actually add subscribers, pretty self-explanatory. And you can manually add them or you can import them. So let's say you were using MailChimp and you decided you did not want to use MailChimp anymore. You could export those email addresses from MailChimp and then bring them into Aweber and then import. And when you're importing, something that's interesting about Aweber, you would probably import them from a file because you would have exported them from somewhere. If you click to browse here, you get access to that file on your computer. So we would hit this. Whoops. Actually, I'm going to have to click to input because I don't have a list to import. So I'm going to hit next. And it's going to say it wants you to match this form, this up. So yep, this is an email address. If this was not an email address, let's say it was my first name, then I would want to collect first name over here. Sometimes, particularly with first and last names, the matching may not be exactly right. So you need whatever this is, whatever piece of information this is, you want to match over here. So that's an email address. So we're going to hit next. How did they join your list? You're going to fill that out. Are you bringing it over from another email provider? If you hit yes, it's going to give you some other steps that you have to go through. So it's going to just walk you through this whole process. With Aweber, you have the option to have a confirmation message or not sent out to the new people you're bringing into your list. And I always leave double opt-in on, which means that they do have to confirm they want to be added to a list. The only time I would not leave that on is when I'm importing someone from another email service provider and I'm going to be mailing them in exactly the same way and on exactly the same topic as I did before, and I have permission to mail to them. Then I would turn the confirmation message off for importing those emails. Okay, and as you walk through this process, it would get you to that point. Okay, so now we're going to go to sign up forms. You can create a new sign up form right here. It's going to look very familiar to you. And again, it's creating a form, and anybody who is filling out the form is going to get added to launch stuff. If I wanted to create a form for list 2, I'd have to switch to list 2 up here and then create a sign up form. Okay, this looks exactly the same. The only thing that changed is this list up here. And you create the forms here in a similar way to some of the other areas. I think this is a little less intuitive for the way I think. That doesn't mean that it is not intuitive for you. You have to kind of click on here and then see it added the counter here, and then you can drag it around. If I added powered by is already on there. If I click that, it goes away. The header goes away if I click on it there. If I want to add an image, I don't have an image here, but you could add an image here. You can add a divider. See, it added it right down here. If I can click on that, it goes away. Or I guess it adds another one, I'm sorry. So you have to kind of play around because each of these is a little different. I could move this divider up here. I could change this to say something else. It could say that I could say I want first and last name, and it's going to say first name and then last name. And then there's some more options. And then if you want a fancier form, you can set up there's templates up here for fancier forms. I never use the forms as they're created on the email service provider because I use lead pages. So I need to create the form in the email service because it gives lead pages a way to collect the email and the first name. That's what I collect. Lead pages will collect the email and first name, pull it over to my email service provider, and first name matches first name and email matches email. So you need to create the form, but none of the design work is done in the email service. They're all done in lead pages. So then I can go to step 2. Once it looks the way I want, you can name it. Then for the thank you page, when they fill out the form, you can either go to a basic thank you page from Aweber, and this is what it looks like. You can also make that look better in Aweber. Or I could send them to a bunch of different places, a video page, my own URL. They could stay on the same page. If they've already subscribed, they would get a notification you've already subscribed to this list, or you could send them to a different email. There's more settings here. So there's a lot that you do in Aweber with forms that you may or may not have to do on some of the other sites. Some people love that. Some people it's just too much. Here are your reports. And then list options, if you want to do anything here with your list, it's in these list options. So if you want to change the name or the description, you want to personalize something, you want to change your confirmation message for double opt-in, it's all done in your list options. Okay. If you want to create a new list, you do that in the manage lists area, and you would create a list here. So here you see I have both my lists. Okay. So that is the nuts and bolts of Aweber. And like I said, I used it for a long time and really liked it. I just happen to like ActiveCampaign better. You'll notice here that they do not offer landing pages. Of the 3 services that I previewed for you, the only one that offered landing pages was MailerLite. They were limited landing pages, but they did offer them. And for some people, that's important. In Aweber or an ActiveCampaign, you would need an outside provider for your landing pages, but that means that the service provider that you used for that is specialized in landing pages. Whereas in MailerLite is not specialized in landing pages. They just offer them as a service to you. They're not, they're not the most options or the most beautiful options or the options that convert the best, but they are something for you to use. So that ends my 3-part video series on the insider's peek to ActiveCampaign, MailerLite, and Aweber. And I hope that they helped you choose the services that speak to you and are the ones that you can get in and use and enjoy while you build your online business. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at Tracy@LaunchTechMadeEasy.com.